So next up on Sound Advice, it's turntable review time. Now, Ed, this is by no means the first time you've reviewed a Roxan item on Sound Advice. What is it about this brand that you like so much?
Roxan is a response to established thinking. That's how it came into being all the way back in 1985. It looked at what was taken to be perceived wisdom, and it didn't get shot of things for the sake of getting shot of things. It got shot of things where they felt that they could do something better. And I've always admired that. It's a different way of approaching things. Roxan, unlike a lot of companies, is perfectly capable of saying, actually, we've done this because it was as good as we could do at the time. And then gone, actually, we found a better way of doing it. And quite radically changed direction in terms of design and ethos. And any organisation that has the self-reflection and the scope to actually, look at what they do and go, no, we could do this differently and we could do this better, I've admired. And no less importantly, generally speaking, I've really enjoyed how it sounds as well. So they have a fairly good hit rate with me.
So today you've got a turntable for us. What is it, and roughly how much can it be found for?
Right, this is where it all began. The turntable in question is the Roksan Xerxes. We've tested it in 20 plus specification, and it dates all the way back to 1985 when Roxan was founded. It is a belt-driven, unsuspended turntable, like an awful lot of turntables out there. But where the Xerxes differs from a lot of other designs is that when I say it's unsuspended, it means it doesn't have springs in it, but it is not just a solid body. If you look at how a Xerxes is assembled, it comes as a series of platforms. It's quite neat and tidy and relatively compact. But within the space between these different levels is a series of rubber domes, and at various points Roxan has actually called them blobs. It blows hot and cold on still calling them blobs, but they've been called blobs in the past. And this means that the playing surface of the Xerxes is isolated, but it's not bouncy. You can, if you squeeze it, you get a little bit of compression, but not a significant amount. This means that it's relatively easy to bolt together. Now, Roxan has been working on the basic design since 1985. So the 20 plus is recognisably still similar to what came out in 1985, but it is different across almost every single component. We tested it for Sound Advice in its all it's got to give specification. So that was with a tone arm that Roxan calls the Sarah, and a cartridge called the Shiraz, which they've been making for a very long time. Is an exceptional phono cartridge. It really is lovely. And then it has a device underneath it called a VSC2. And I have to use the word device because it doesn't fit easy description. It is a single chassis with one plug that contains both the power supply to make the record player go round and the phono stage that allows you to get a decent amount of voltage out of the cartridge and connect to an amplifier. So with this one box, you can essentially install the Xerxes, and it is from there plug and play, to a slightly loose definition of plug and play. It's not perhaps a turntable I'd give to someone as their first attempt. Now, it's important to stress that the version that we tested is over £11,000. That's a fair amount of money, even in the standards of 2023. You don't have to go in at this level to start with. You can specify your Xerxes with a simpler arm, you can specify it with a simpler cartridge, and you can specify it with a simpler power supply. Then, as and when you feel like it, you can update your particular example to whichever spec you see fit. It will also play quite nicely with other people's cartridges, other people's tone arms. It uses relatively conventional fitment and geometry for that. You will probably need to stay in-house for your power supply, but that's hardly unusual. So effectively, we tested it in premium spec, but you can get a Xerxes up and running for, I think, between £5,500 and £6,000, which is obviously still a fairly considerable sum of money, but it's important to stress that it does sound pretty good in all specifications, and exceptional in the spec that we tested it.
Now, you said this might not be a good one for someone's first turntable, but do you need a degree in hyphology to set it up? Or is it reasonably straightforward if you basically know what you're doing?
If you can overcome the traditional, and it must be said, traditionally male urge to ignore instruction manuals, it is not that difficult. Provided that you follow the well-honed instructions, you can get a Xerxes up and running and sounding extremely good. Just don't rush and don't skip any of the steps.
Okay, now, of course, some people might have been asking themselves how anything that's basically just a motor that spins and a needle can cost such a lot of money. You've gone a long way to explaining why it costs such a lot of money. But what would persuade you to part with such a sum for this piece of kit? What is it that delights you about it?
Turntables are infuriating. I love the damn things, but they are infuriating. Even to completely appropriate collections of engineering, two different turntable models that do lots and lots of things that are regarded as absolute best practice, can sound radically different from one another. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view these things, absolutely everything makes a difference. And where the Xerxes excels is those original design principles by which it came into being, of isolating the playing surface without it then inducing loss and other engineering side effects from putting springs in there. It produces a turntable that sounds distinctive without being obviously coloured. And I'm afraid that this sort of ability is not cheap. We have in various sound advices discussed that there are certain parts of audio where it is perhaps easier to secure astonishing performance on a budget. If you make a lot of something, if you make use of exceptional software or the latest and greatest piece of silicon for your decoding, you can buy in a level of result that perhaps would have been very hard to achieve at the same price even a couple of years before. Turntables don't get that benefit. They are all mechanical engineering, and decent mechanical engineering has always cost. And the Xerxes is just a phenomenal example of that. And it manages to do that whilst actually being compact, I think relatively attractive. Beauty is, of course, in the eye of the beholder. And easy to use. And that's unfortunately something that does end up costing a little bit of money. But, you know, from my perspective, I think it's worth it.
Thanks, Ed. So there you have it, the Roksan Xerxes turntable. And as Ed said, his full written review is available on the Sound Advice website.